everybody. Welcome to Stop Being Polite, a podcast where we recap the real world homecoming New Orleans on behalf of Silent Podcasts, where we're anything but silent. My name is Katie, and I'm here with my co-host, Kari. Kari, how are you?
I am good. I am recovered. I was sick all week.
I know you had a rough go.
Dude, it was struggle city. I was the mayor of it. But the first show I caught up on out of all the ones that I've missed was this one because I've had such a joy watching it and I was excited to talk about it, especially because I saw a bunch of people tweeting about it, which I haven't seen yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it's picking up some momentum. So
yeah, for sure. The show is such a treat. I feel like every week I'm looking forward to talking about it and watching it, and I'm upset that it's going to be over soon. Really, is really how I feel. I'm focusing on the negative.
Don't do that.
Can't help myself. I can't help myself. All right. Well, cool. We can go ahead and jump on in. We're talking about episode 4 today. The episode name is called It Shouldn't Be Comfortable. We're talking about racism, which we've seen in the preview. We've seen Melissa saying that. I think we could all assume it was to Julie, and lo and behold, it was to Julie. But this episode is a ride. There's a lot of talk about race. So I do want to say at the top, we are 2 white women where we consider ourselves allies. We consider ourselves anti-racists. But, obviously we're not the 2 authorities on this, so we'll do the best that we can. But just want to say that to start. But the episode picks back up at the house meeting that was called by Tokyo last week, where, the group of roommates was talking to Julie kind of just about her behavior in general, and Tokyo wanted to address her about why he wanted to switch rooms. He didn't feel like he wanted to switch rooms without giving her a full reason why. So that's kind of where we pick up.
Sorry, I have to interrupt, but how funny would it have been if Jamie started the house meeting with and Julie, we want to know why you're such an asshole to everybody.
I know, right?
Like you did to Tokyo however long ago.
Yeah, that would have been amazing.
Appreciated that. And I'm sure the editors would have too.
I agree. I would have also appreciated it, especially because Julie is an asshole. So it would have been fitting for sure. And Julie's assholery is I feel like we're climbing a mountain and we think we've reached the top of asshole mountain, and it just keeps going. It's like you reach a point where it levels off a little bit. Yeah, like a plateau. And then it's like, oh, I'm at the top. And then you just see on the horizon, there's a whole nother peak coming. And you're like, oh shit, there's more to this asshole mountain that I have to climb here. And that's kind of where we are. I think we might be at a plateau at the end of the episode, but I'm sure there's more mountain coming. This is definitely not the peak. But we're climbing up, where you would just keep climbing on up. So Julie, the episode kind of starts with Julie saying, I'm not creating a narrative that a big black man tried to hurt me. This is kind of where it's coming from, where they're all like, you're creating this narrative. And she's like, I'm not. And I want to put right now, I'm just saying that, I'm not saying that. So let's just squash it right here and say that that's not. But, she just keeps trying to shut down a conversation, just keeps saying I'm not making it about race. I'm not making it about race, essentially. And she said, you think I'm making a story up, but it's actually what I knew at the time. And I wasn't aware of some of the stuff that was going on that everyone else was seeing, which it's okay, let's take a beat here. You just said yourself you weren't aware of what was happening. Mm-hmm. So why are you still talking?
I said, why are you still talking out loud to Julie anywhere between 7 to 10 times in the watch of the episode. So that's just a common theme, I think, with her.
Yeah.
She just doesn't know how to shut up.
Yeah. I was probably yelling at my screen about 65% of this episode. I couldn't help myself.
Yeah, it was just hard because it's she won't listen, and you want her to so badly because, really, I think that in a perfect world, every one of us is rooting for all of them to have evolved over the last 22 years into better versions of themselves. And a lot of spotlight has been on Julie, and a lot of opportunity, even within these first 4 episodes, for her to take what's being said and take it in, consider what's being said, and then say something along the right path, and she just can't even do it. And it's just so frustrating that like you've not only had these people who, regardless of how ignorant you are, still are putting up with you and care about you to an extent. Like
Mm-hmm.
as even Melissa is like she'll always care about her in a certain way. Like, are they friends? No, but like I don't think she's out there wishing harm on her by any means. Like
Right.
all these people are still giving you all these chances and you still keep messing it up. Like I'm like mad. Just like I'm mad right now. I'm mad thinking about it.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough. I just feel like and it comes up a little bit later in the episode, but Melissa says she talks a little bit about the emotional labor of kind of being the teacher in this and in these environments as a person of color, but I feel like in general the emotional labor that especially Melissa and David have to deal with Julie in general, let alone the rest of the house and the rest of their lives, it's just like the amount of emotional labor Julie requires is like way too much for any one person. It's just
Yeah.
like you've been afforded the grace of these people for years, and now it's on you whether you want to be a better person or not. It's on you. And it's very clear that Julie does not want to be, regardless of what she says in the episode. It's like, I feel like we're dealing with a Jekyll and Hyde here with Julie, where it's like she cries and she plays the victim and she's a monster in one scene. And then in the next scene, she's like, I'm an anti-racist. And I'm like, but you've been being racist this whole time. Like, what are you not understanding? Like, I just feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone with her sometimes. I'm just like, how do we end up here? I don't understand. I do not understand it. Um, it's just really bad. She's just awful. She doesn't let anybody get a word in. Oh, what you said is, I wanted to touch on that we all at the end of the day want to root for these people to show growth. I'm not rooting for Julie at all. I just want to say I'm ready for Julie to be fully raked across the coals across the board. I had no high hopes of Julie being a better person coming into this house. I saw her on the challenge. I saw her try to murder Veronica. I've seen her not take any accountability for her actions for 22 years since she's been on this show. I can understand as a 20-year-old Mormon, you're not familiar with the world around you, but like you're fucking, as Melissa has said, we're fucking old. Get it fucking together, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Get it together. Get it together or get the fuck out of here. That's all I have to say. Get out of this world. Get out of the spotlight. I never want to think about Julie again. I mean, I'm going to watch the show and I'm going to be entertained by it, but like as a person in this universe, just get the fuck out. That's all I have to say, Julie. Just get the fuck out. Anyway, okay, we can get back into the episode now. I just wanted to say that at the top because I can't. I was screaming at my TV watching this.
Yeah, there might be at least one person I need to clear up the record for. I'm not out here like defending Julie by any means. However, I just want like it's really disappointing because there's thousands of Julies out there. Julie is not
millions of Julie.
Yeah, I underestimated that one by a lot. There's millions of Julies out there, but they all have not been afforded the opportunities that Julie has to learn and be better. And so that's where you would hope that she's taken the opportunities. She's taken these things that have happened in real life. She's taken like literature and media and all these things and consume them and like have the opportunity to grow and be better. And she hasn't. And it's incredibly frustrating because then I get even more like sad because if Julie can't with all of these supports, then like what hope do we have for like the random ass Julie who hasn't been on the real world, who hasn't been surrounded by people of different religions, ethnicities, races, sexualities, like multiple times? Then like if she can't with these opportunities, then what's the hope to change the minds of other closed-minded people who haven't had them? And so that's kind of like where I genuinely get sad about it. I really do get sad.
Yeah, I get angry because I feel like Julie is, like you said, there's millions or thousands and millions and hundreds of thousands and millions of Julies out there that like, honestly, as a woman and two women who are just basically every day watching like our rights get stripped away and watching people that we care about who are people of color and who are and as part of the LGBT community, LGBTQIA community, getting their rights debated every day, getting voting rights taken away, abortions getting taken away. Women do not have a right to choose. Will very soon no longer have a right to choose. And very soon, a lot of these states, New Orleans is in Louisiana, and Louisiana is very soon going to vote to take the right to birth control away and IUDs away. And it's like you have this person who has this spotlight. There are women like Julie out there everywhere who are just uninformed and bring the general like intelligence of the population down, and they vote us into the fucking dark ages, because you better believe women like this are out there voting and they don't even know what they're voting for, or they think about things from their own privileged perspective. And it's just like, it just makes me actually sick to think about people like Julie, honestly. And I'm conflating Julie and putting Julie's face on every other like privileged white woman out there, which I am also a privileged white woman. You are a privileged white woman. But like, we think about these things, we think about the bigger picture. Like I said, we're not perfect, but Julie is like just actually like a monster. I'm going on a tirade here, but she's just a monster to me, and I have no respect for her whatsoever. And I think she's an upsetting person to even have on my TV screen. But it's entertaining me, and I'm going to watch it at the end of the day. You know, I'm not going to say I'm not going to watch it.
Joseph Boza says that if it wasn't for Julie's dumbass and her BS thoughts, we wouldn't have a homecoming season, which I'm going to politely disagree with you, Joseph, only because I feel like Matt's feet have not been held to the fire yet. Like, we only have 4 episodes left.
Yeah.
We have not gotten, in my opinion, like, you could dive deeper into Tokyo, because we are seeing a complete 180 from Tokyo from the original season to now.
Agreed.
And like, Jamie and Kelly have said a combined 12 words in 4 episodes.
Yes. And I think that kind of does a discredit to Melissa and Tokyo specifically, and Danny, who were really big parts of that original season.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Julie's a big part of it. Unfortunately, I think they chose to feature Julie a little too much in the original season. Like we talked about, I feel like she was kind of like the narrator of the show in a lot of ways. And I feel like that did us a disservice a little bit.
But she definitely is providing, and somewhat purposefully on her part, vehicles for conversation.
Yes, exactly. So we're at the meeting. Julie just keeps continuing to interrupt and talk over everybody. You know, and she says, you know, Melissa then calls her out for producing the show, essentially. She basically says, let's keep it real. We heard you on the phone. She doesn't really say this, but she's like, you're here to make a show. I know that this is what you said. You think we're making boring TV. And Julie's like, I'm just trying to live my life. And she's just at the end of the day, she's creating manufactured drama and making people feel uncomfortable. That's like really what she's doing. And I think the bigger picture here is that she's taking away the ability for Tokyo, Melissa, specifically those two, but anybody else to like have a say in being part of this. This is the crux of the issue, right? She creates these narratives to try and make good TV, and she's taking the onus away, or like the autonomy away from Melissa and Tokyo to be like actively participating, because they think they're participating in one thing, and then Julie's making it a completely different thing than what it is. So they think they're giving their energy to this one scenario, but then it's getting twisted. And it's in a way that's full of microaggressions and anything that's bigger than microaggressions, and you know, everything that we've been seeing so far.
A side note at this part was like, why didn't Kelly say something?
I don't understand.
She could have, like, I'm sure that there's not one person of the other, I guess 5 if you remove Julie and Melissa from this. I think Melissa is lying about what she just said. However, Kelly just needs to chime in and be like, yeah, I heard her too. Like, I heard you say this, Julie, because like you have an opportunity to really just add credibility to the whole situation. Not that, again, Melissa lacks credibility by any means, right, but it's to have 2 people have heard this. Like, I don't know why aren't they? And that's just an instance of them not speaking up, and that's an easy place to speak up. Like, I can understand you're uncomfortable. You don't want to have this conversation because, like, I don't want to say I can understand it, because I'm always willing to have a conversation about this. So I see that you don't want to be one of the people that seems that they're in the conflict with this. However, to just kind of let Melissa sit there and say, I heard you on the phone with your husband saying these things, all you have to say
Mhm.
is, yeah, I heard it too. Like, that's it.
Right. You could say, "You were in the hot tub. We both heard it. We were upstairs. You were talking your loud ass off. We heard you." But for some reason, I don't know if she said it or she didn't say it and they didn't show it, but it's very frustrating to watch these people sit here and do nothing. They do nothing. It just is wild to me. So, uh, Julie basically says, I don't want to be the fucking star of this show. Please pick up the mantle and fucking do something so I don't have to be the center of attention. And I'm just like, this is sick. Like, this is just like, I don't have anything clear and concise to say because even though I've watched this now, I watched it yesterday when it came out. I watched it again this afternoon to take notes on it. And I'm just like, still, my mind is boggled and I can't think of a clear and concise thing to say. Like, it gets me riled just like thinking about this woman.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, Tokyo just continues to point out, like, you're not looking at the outcome of your actions here. And then we get a confessional of him basically saying he's not withdrawing, but it's really hard for him because this is out of his comfort zone. And then Danny steps in and he backs Julie up. And he
Mm-hmm.
basically says, I want to, we're talking a lot about narratives, but I want to say, you didn't really give anybody a chance. You wanted to leave, and that was like your narrative. And then he said that it was violent. And I was like, I'm sorry, sir. What?
Mm-hmm.
You're really sitting here calling Tokyo violent because you wanted to stay at a club and Julie was being a belligerent fool, falling on the floor, being a monster, and you're calling Tokyo violent? I don't understand.
Did you see that Melissa like address this part in some tweets today?
I did not, actually.
Yeah, she said that she talked to him about it. Let me pull up the tweets exactly so that I'm not misquoting our superstar because I'll misquote anybody else for her.
Yeah.
I refuse. No, it would be nice if she showed up. There we go. So she like did a thread about it. Let's see. Danny and I share a unique bond in the sense that we carried a heavy load in terms of representing for a group when we were really just being our young selves. What we represented is different, sure, but the feeling of responsibility, foreverness around what we stood for is the same. I talked to Danny this morning. You know I did, girl, because I just had to ask how he's feeling today. You know what I'm saying? Because we are human, we have feelings and questions. And oh, hold on. I don't want to read all of it, but here we go. He did not see any of what Tokyo did the night before in the aftercare. As you saw, he had him a good old time and wasn't trying to go home either. You saw the swirl. In the meantime, he said he saw, he also saw Tokyo's perspective on needing to get us out of there. Why he didn't see any of that is because after I had the vomit on my sock and said, oh, hell no, I retreated to our room and shut the door tight. I said, no more talking in here. If we talk, cameras come. Hush, it's shower time. It's quiet time. We put Danny's ass in the shower, doused him in essential oils, gave him some water and some Advil, and put his ass to bed. All he knew of that evening was that he was trying to kick it. So he misspoke on what Tokyo and I were talking about in a bigger picture. So yeah, be easy. We're watching this shit in real time. We're hearing what the cast has to say about each other on the show in their interviews for the first time. We're seeing viewpoints we might not have discerned while there. We're probably all going to misspeak at some point. And then she goes, I mean, I hope I don't. But I'm saying, so she kind of like defended him a bit in that.
I think it's fair. Obviously, she was there. So she,
Mhm.
her opinion is more valid than mine, obviously. And her statement is, I just think there's a choice of words, and violent is not even in the conversation, especially based on the conversation that they were already having about the narrative that Julie is creating about the person of color who's helping her, and she becomes this white woman victim to then be a white man and sit there and say, you were violent. He wasn't violent. Use a different
Mhm.
word. Just say maybe you were, I don't even want to say forceful. Maybe just say like you were adamant or something. There's other words that you can say. Just saying like, you were forcing your perspective on us because you wanted to leave, or like you were forcing us to leave when we didn't want to leave. That's totally different than saying like you were violent. And I
Mhm.
get it. We can give him some grace on that because obviously, he seems to be on the right side of most things, but I think words are important and impactful. And that was a really, really poor word choice that I was really surprised to hear. Honestly, I was surprised. When I heard violent, I was like, what?
He quite frankly was the last one that should have been speaking up because he was in the same mental state as Julie.
Exactly.
Where it
Exactly.
should have been Jamie or Kelly.
Right. Well, maybe, I mean, it should really be Jamie. Jamie was there. Jamie witnessed the
Oh, not
entire
Kelly. I'm sorry.
ordeal.
You're right. Kelly wasn't there. My bad.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And
Jamie. What the fuck, Jamie?
where is Jamie? Hello, Jamie. I'm like peeking behind curtains. Are you there?
He's
Under a
got his
bed?
like
Are you
VR
there?
set on. He's
Yeah,
like
like,
punching
yeah, are
at
you
the
in your virtual
exit.
reality world? I don't know. It's just, what are you doing, sir? So, you know, he says he had the exact same experience. Tokyo then says he doesn't understand how it was violent. He was violent against him. And Julie is kind of saying that she doesn't know if the bruises are for Tokyo. And Julie, you know, they're kind of saying, you know, this is actually violence against Tokyo. The things that Julie is doing are violent against him. She's accusing him of something that he did not do. And she basically says to Julie says to Melissa or to the group that she doesn't expect Melissa to get involved. She jumped into Tokyo's meeting, and she doesn't know why, which it's like, oh my God, hello. She's literally explaining to you what you are doing in layman's terms. And I don't know how you can't see that these are the only two people of color in the house and she's standing up for him because you are putting an accusation on him that is damaging. And she's standing up for him because no one else in the house is doing it. Nobody else in the house is doing it except for her. You think that he deserves to be on this island by himself? I don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
So she basically says that Melissa's been waiting for this moment, and that Julie can't live her life in the house because Melissa's always looking for her to fuck up on something so she can be made into the villain. So Melissa kind of just like gets up and she says, he doesn't want to be your roommate because you're doing dangerous white woman shit. And she tries to leave. Kelly at this point kind of seems like she's like trying to like speak up a little bit, but she doesn't say anything. It's just kind of like she's like seems like she's about to talk and then says nothing. And then we get a confessional of Matt. Oh, Matt, just continuing to just give us nothing at all times. And he says, there's profound hurt here between two friends. It's like this guy like reads like a proverb of the day calendar and says like whatever nonsense is on that page. It's like, there's hurt here. Can we have a hug? We could do better. It's just like, what are you saying? You're not saying words that mean anything.
I 100% agree. I want to be fully transparent in that Nitro might have had the same accent I talked to you about before we started. So I'm going to try to evaluate the situation while also podcasting because he gets a little territorial of the area this happens in. And yeah, he's like sitting here staring at me. So yes, I definitely was listening to everything you just said. Something that like I want to salute Melissa on, and I noticed it more the second time I watched like 1.5 times, I guess we can say. And I don't know if it's like too early to say this, but the way that she has been able to approach all of this without raising her voice while someone is yelling at her and yelling such ignorant, stupid shit at her. I'm just amazed by it. And like genuinely, it's actually something that I will consider going forward in terms of how I respond to people. She actually did like a tweet thread about that too. Just like kind of like keeping, like, it's kind of like feeling it within your gut and keeping it within you and like not just reacting, but instead making sure that you hear everything. She said when she was in the house, and it was kind of alluded to within the episode, that she was on her phone all the time. And it wasn't because she was like texting people or like on social media or anything. It was because she was writing down everything in her notes app to make sure that like, this is what I heard. And so when it comes back up, like, no, I wrote this down. I've processed it. I know that this is what you said. And there was a point where Kelly was like, I hear the tapping noise. And Melissa's like, yeah, it's my favorite. And that's because she would write down these things so that she was able to make sure that she could respond in a way that she wanted to. So she said what she meant and not what she felt at the time. And like seeing her kind of like break that down on Twitter was interesting because I saw it after I watched the episode the first time. So it's like the way, it's not like they're just having a conversation over like is LeBron or MJ the best basketball player of all time? Like something where at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who it is. This is about something so so important to just like everybody. It should be important to everybody.
Yeah.
It's not, but especially to someone like her who is biracial and that like the way she's able to just keep her calm and talk about it to me is something that I think that's worth pointing out because she does it with such grace. She's just like you can tell she's also matured as well from her first season, but that goes without saying, but it's amazing how she's able to do that.
I truly find Melissa to be just extremely wise, and like centered, and she's always just like you said that she said she's really thinking about things further down the road than like in the moment. And I feel sad for her that she has to think that way because of just perception. And she's mentioned a few times in the episode that she didn't want to get portrayed or want to be considered like the angry Black woman. Because I think even if she was feeling angry, she had every right to feel the way that she was feeling. Obviously, all of her feelings are completely valid, but like we're seeing what was playing out, and the fact that she could keep it together is truly so impressive. And it's kind of sad that she has to like even take that into consideration before she can react instead of reacting with how she actually feels. Because sometimes it helps to just get your feelings out and rip someone apart. But I understand that she can't and didn't want to do that. So, I mean, huge shout out to Melissa. We love her. It goes without saying how much. I mean, I know we say it all the time, but it goes also without saying how much we love her. So then Julie starts to cry.
This
as
is where
usual.
she loses me every time because that is more than anything like if it's not like the screaming and yelling in someone's face, it's the tears of your choice of victimizing yourself. That you're the one that's hurt right now when like you've been the one hurting people. So why are you crying?
Literally, why are you crying? You have been nothing but damaging to the people in this house, and people are holding you accountable for your actions, and your immediate response is to kick and scream and yell like a child. And then when you don't get your way, then you throw a tantrum and you cry. It's like the most typical Karen shit. She is not an adult to me. She is like emotionally and mentally stunted. She basically says she starts to cry, and she said she's horribly embarrassed and doesn't know what it's going to look like on TV. She doesn't really remember what happened. And it's like, you're saying you don't, in one sentence, you're saying you don't remember what happened. And then she'll say, well, we don't know where the bruises came from. It could have been Tokyo. And it's like, these people are telling you that you walked into a tree and got scratched by the branches of the tree. You fell out of a car. You could have literally killed yourself if you landed the wrong way or like got a brain bleed and died. But yet you're blaming the man who was helping you. It's just unbelievable to me. So Melissa walks away and she's like, I'm not dealing with the tears, which I commend her for. Like, remove yourself from the situation. There's no reason that you need to be there and be witness to this. Like, this is a pathetic joke. Everybody should have left Julie there crying. She goes upstairs. She sits in her bed. Kelly comes up and she's like, hey, how's it going? And Melissa said she's not getting involved in this masterful level of gaslighting where Julie twists things around and makes everyone feel sorry for her. And then as she's saying that, the producers or the editors cut to Julie still crying. And she's like, I'm going to be alone in a room. Don't you guys see like how that's making me feel? And it's like, you are literally a child. You are a child. I would, first of all, love to be alone in a room.
Yeah, that's my dream.
That's like, you get a suite to yourself and that's amazing. You get actual privacy, but you're crying because like these people don't want to be friends with you because of what you did that you cannot take accountability for. It's like unreal. It's unreal.
Housewives fight over that shit.
Literally. It's really on another level. So Melissa basically says like she doesn't want to be part of a narrative around an actual Black person who exists, who has to go back into the world with these accusations of hurting this white woman when he was in the service of actually helping her. Like, her concern coming into the house, kind of like what you were just saying, is that she doesn't want to be the angry Black lady. And Julie is playing the victim and then pretends to be quiet and meek and cries. And she basically says like, I can either let it happen and then I play into it and I don't stand up for the right thing, or I can feed into it and react, and that's when I become like the angry Black woman. So she's really stuck between a rock and a hard place here. There's no winning for Melissa, and you see how Julie twists it to make Melissa the bad guy the second that she's standing up for what's right. It's like you can't win with somebody like Julie. But my favorite part is when she says to Kelly, the real thing that needs to happen is that she needs to go to jail.
Yeah.
She needs to go straight to jail because something ain't right. And this is the first time in the episode that I laughed. And I was just like, Melissa's just like truly a gift on our screens. That just really made me laugh. And Kelly was like, how about a therapist? And you know what? I agree. Send this bitch to jail. Get the fuck out of here. Someone needs to lock you up. So Julie is still sitting outside and she says that Melissa's painting her as the type of person that she isn't. And Tokyo says, like, just exist, let Melissa be, and just like be yourself, exist. So I think we get to, yes, we do. We get to a confessional of Julie saying that now she feels paranoid about the confrontation, and how the nature of that meeting ended. And she continues to call Melissa and Kelly bullies and say that they're mean girling her. And she says, this is Mean Girl Acres. It's Golden Girls on crack. Fuck these women. I'm not going to do the mean girl thing or be victim to that shit. So she literally calls herself a victim, says that Kelly and Melissa are mean girls. It's just like, you're truly, you cry and you act like you understand. These interviews were filmed after what had already taken place. So like, you're still consciously saying that shit. It's actually, it's truly unbelievable.
Yes. What amazes me is like, she's a real human and this is her perspective. Like how is she viewing it this way? I just, there's no way that I can see it. Like neither of those girls have raised their voice. They haven't called her names.
Nothing.
Like nothing. There hasn't been, I don't know what her definition of mean is, but we also see it later, that when she like escalates the situation, when she was like, oh, well, it's hard to learn when the teachers are screaming at you.
Oh yeah,
like,
we'll talk about it.
It's so childish in the way that like when you feel like you're getting yelled at or like, oh, are you mad at me? Like, no, I just said something like honest and upfront to you. I didn't call you any names or anything. Like she has very childish reactions, and her perspective on things to me is so incredibly juvenile. And I don't even know if that is juvenile, because I just think it's so skewed in a way that I'll never understand it.
Yeah, she's stunted. She's a stunted person. I don't think that there's ever any growth that is going to be seen from her. I've protected my peace and I haven't really looked at her Twitter. I looked at it last week. I didn't look at it this week. Maybe I should, just to fuel my rage on Julie a little bit more. But why? It's already festering deep within me. I don't know that I need to fuel it. But it's just, I just don't know an adult who acts like this. And these people are literally in their 40s. Which is not old by any means, but it's past the point where like you should have unpacked your shit at this point. There's a point where you can say, well, I grew up in the Mormon church and this is what I was taught. And I had a weird dynamic growing up and my dad wanted me to go to BYU and then do a ministry, whatever it was that she talked about in the original season. But like, there's an expiration date on that. And it's when you're old enough to be on your own and you made a decision to leave the Mormon church. So that should have been an active choice then to learn all of the things that you didn't get to learn while you were in that church. And you should have used it as an opportunity to get help, go to therapy, learn how to cope with your weird ass fucking emotions that don't make any sense, and stop playing the victim. But if she did that, she needs to continue doing it because it obviously didn't work. Or at the end of the day, this is just who you are and you're not going to change and you're a bad person, which I'm kind of leaning toward that being the case.
Yes. And, oh my God, I had a point and then got sidetracked. Katie, keep going. Just
okay.
keep talking.
All right, I'll keep it moving.
I'll say it.
Okay. I'll keep it going. I'll move to the next. So Julie continues to like walk around the house saying, are you guys all talking about my shit? Are you talking about me? Are you talking about my shit? And like, we talked about this in the first episode where things kind of went left with Julie, where then she came downstairs and was like, are you all talking about me? And it's like, this kind of goes back to like her doing all of these things almost on purpose to make a TV show. Now it's all like all the pieces of the puzzle are starting to come together. Where like maybe in the moment she's like feeling like a victim, but at the end of the day, like I feel like she always has this light at the end of her tunnel of saying like that this is going to be good TV, and that's why she's like wants to make sure she's walking around being like, "Are you talking about me?" And every time they're like, "No, nobody's talking about you. No one's talking about you." It's embarrassing. You just said an hour before or 10 minutes before, I don't want to be the center of attention. But it's like, now you do want, but you do. You're lying.
Mhm.
You're lying.
I do know what I was going to say is that I looked
Okay.
up her Twitter and she has made it private.
Oh, okay.
So I have a
Interesting.
feeling that Julie did not get the most positive things directed at her after this last episode because it was public like last week.
It was public last week. What a surprise. Julie doesn't want to listen to criticism. Interesting.
This
Who could have ever
doesn't.
seen that coming?
Yeah, it doesn't
Weird.
sound familiar. I
Totally
haven't
out
heard
of
that
character for
ever.
her. Yeah, very strange. Never would have thought. I bet she turned off her Instagram comments too if she has an Instagram. That's also a key move. You make all your shit private and you turn off your comments so people can't attack you there.
Mm-hmm.
What a mess. So then she tries to leave. Basically, she calls her husband. She basically says she wants to go. And then like we cut to the next morning and she's like, I talked to my husband and he convinced me to stay. It's like, yeah, of course you were going to stay. I would love for you to leave, actually. That would be like a gift. We get to see you crash and burn and then you leave. That would be amazing. I would love it.
Do you think her husband said, but who's going to make the good TV if you go?
Yes, I think it's how are you going to get on the challenge if you leave? You can't quit. You need to stay on and be dramatic because they're going to want you on as the villain on the challenge or some other show. I think that's really what she is vying for, because no human being can act this way without having some kind of end goal. Like, I just refuse to believe that this is a real person, as we've said.
Don't put her on the challenge.
No, please.
I'm not a very religious person by any means, but I will pray to whoever I need to for her to not be on the challenge.
Yes, she cannot. We cannot have her on the challenge.
No,
we
thanks.
Can't. Then we cut to the next morning and we get an incoming message. They go back to the bayou. We talked a little bit about this. There's not that much to say about it. I think we'll have more to say about the bayou trip in the next like incoming message.
Yeah.
But this is basically they just went. Melissa was very funny and she was like, it's not about the potential of racism. It's the fact that I don't want to be outside. I just took a shower. I don't want anything to do with nature. And Melissa, I agree. I feel you. I get it. But they go. Kelly does not join them. She is not there. Unexplained. She's just not there. She's not on the boat. So it's like, okay, I guess Kelly had more book writing to do.
I watched this twice and didn't notice that she wasn't on there.
She was not there. She was not there.
Okay.
I don't understand.
Why is she here?
Why are you here, Kelly? It would be different if like the scenes she was in, she was like giving us something, but she's giving us nothing consistently. So what are you getting paid for?
She's getting paid to write a book. Like, this is kind of the same scheme that I pulled in college where I had a job that I worked 8 hours a day, except it only took 45 minutes for me to do my work for work. So I just got paid to do my homework. Like, Kelly's kind of running the same. I watched so much TV and I did so much. And like sometimes I would just leave and like come back 4 hours later and be like, I'd like get paid to go to class. Like,
it's kind of amazing.
So I'm not gonna say where or whose tax dollars funded that, but
listen, what can you do? Inefficiencies in the system. What can you do?
She was around the same scheme here. We're like, yeah, I'm gonna do my homework on the job right now.
Basically, which I guess like shout out to you, Kelly, but also like why are you there? I mean, it doesn't impact me. She's just not there. I guess we're not really missing anything, but I think we'll get more Kelly as the episodes go on. At least it seems that way from the mid-season preview, which we will definitely talk about. But I wrote in my notes that this doesn't look fun at all. But we did get like a little split screen of them on a boat 22 years ago, like all like in their same positions and like having the same reactions, which was cute. Melissa toward the end did admit that it's kind of relaxing, like the coasting and the sunshine and the fresh air part without like the speeding and the splattering. And she had a genuinely nice time, and she said the tour guide is a lovely person. Do you have anything to talk about with this boat trip? I feel like it just happened, and that's really it. Matt was
Shout out,
there, who wasn't there the first time, and
yeah,
Tokyo
my
was
one
there.
shout out is to the it's not conductor, the whoever, I guess like he
Yeah,
conducted the boat
captain,
tour.
tour
Yeah,
guide.
sure. Yeah, like lead crocodile watcher. I'm not sure,
Yeah,
but
whatever.
for not saying the N word this time, you did it. We're on a streak of
Yeah,
one right now.
yeah. Well, different guy for sure, but
It.
good for him.
Yep.
Yeah, way to go. Seems like it's a difficult thing to do as a swamp boat driver to not say that. So, and he didn't. So, way to go, I guess.
Yep.
Um, yeah, Melissa said he was lovely. Jamie admitted that he was very insensitive about what happened on the original Bayou tour. And that we got a lot of flashbacks, where he was like, doesn't make him a bad person. He's a really nice guy, and you hold some bias with you, which is just like so wild. But Melissa, and I was gonna take a screenshot of this, post it in her Instagram story, kind of like a notes app, a few slides where she talks about this and how she thinks differently about Jamie than she does about Julie because Jamie put in the work and he read some books.
Oh yeah, she put that on Twitter too.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah, I wanted to read that and I forgot. I'll take a look for it. I'll take a look for it and we can read it unless you have it and know where to find it. But I thought it was a really thoughtful way to kind of explain why she is more forgiving of Jamie and she doesn't harbor any ill will toward him for that because he's grown as a person. He's put in the work to understand why and he was remorseful for it. Where Julie just continues her bad fucking behavior. But he basically says he didn't understand the gravity of what that holds in of what that word holds in a Black person's way of life. And he apologized to her on the van and says how he acted was fucked up. So he addressed it to an extent, which I think it was nice that he publicly apologized in front of everybody because Melissa has mentioned a few times that she got a lot of hate mail about this. And I think we'll talk about it more when we talk about the next incoming message because I think it's more pertinent there. And Elon in the chat mentions as well that she said he apologized off camera as well before meeting up, which is also really important. Like he's not doing it to be performative for the cameras. He probably truly meant it, which is nice. So we're back at the house. Melissa tells Kelly that her parents are coming. This is a secret, which is really exciting. Mercy and Shorty are coming. They came to the Bell Fort, but it wasn't shown on the original season, which is sad. And Melissa wanted everybody to see the impact that her parents had on her back then. So we get a flashback of her family coming in the house. This is really cute. We also got a shot of Melissa's husband, Justin Beck, who is in the band Glassjaw, which I think we talked about. As a Long Islander, she calls him a hardcore legend. Glassjaw are hardcore legends, hardcore of the hardcore scene in Long Island and like in the surrounding areas, maybe all over. I don't know if that translates everywhere, but if you're in like the hardcore emo music punk scene here in Long Island, they're a huge, huge, huge band. They just did like a reunion tour recently and they played like a million nights and it was kind of crazy. So she said that the way that they got together is that he called her on New Year's Eve in 2004 and asked her if she wanted to fuck, which I thought was hilarious. And the rest is history. I think they've been together, she said, 17 years or something like that?
Yeah.
So shout out to them, which is great. She said that she has a podcast called Imperfect Strangers, which I think was on hiatus for a little bit, but I think they're putting out new episodes now. I had known about the podcast. I hadn't really listened to it prior. I plan on listening to it, but I knew it existed. I just haven't listened to it, but good for her. But she did say that there's no better way to tell the story of Melissa than by sharing her parents with everybody. And that she hasn't seen them since 2019, which is really sad. That's a really long time. And as someone who follows her on she has like a private Twitter account that she's had for a really long time. Now she has her public one for the show. She took COVID extremely, extremely, extremely seriously. So I'm not really surprised that she hasn't seen anybody. Maybe like, she saw them in the fall and then COVID came early in 2020 and seems to have been following restrictions very, very closely. So I'm not really surprised, but it's nice that she got to see them, which is really great. But we'll talk about it when we get there.
Yeah, I thought it was cool that like they afforded the option to have her parents come back for this, especially because we didn't see it in the actual season. So having like they could have easily not had that since we didn't know that happened the first time. So I
Right.
like that. We got a little bit more like in-depth perspective of Melissa. A little like it was almost like the it mirrored how she was the centerfold part of like the TV guide, like where she was like just her.
Yeah.
We got
Yeah.
our like TV guide moment of Melissa there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. So then we go to the next incoming message. And Julie's on the phone with her husband. She says, "Oh no, the couch of doom," which like for her, it is consistently the couch of doom.
Yeah,
So I understand why
she's
she
a
would refer
dumb
to
bitch.
it that way. Yeah, exactly. For everyone else, it's like a thoughtful conversation where they can revisit everything, but for her, it's couch of doom because she sucks. Um, we get a flashback to Julie, which we talked about in our season recap when we recapped the original season. But we get a flashback to the housemates discussing the racially, I'm not gonna say racially insensitive, the racist remark Julie made in the kitchen um, when Melissa asked her to put something away back 22 years ago. And then they start talking about the N word and why, explaining to Julie why white people are not allowed to say this. And I think we said this in the season recap that we did, but it's, I never thought it was okay to say that word. Like I never grew up thinking that that word was okay. I understand I grew up very differently than Julie, but for me to hear her at 20 years old, even though we weren't like in the necessarily in the internet age as we are now with like Google and everything, I still don't ever recall not knowing that that word was not okay. I know she grew up very differently than me, but it was that was shocking to me. So like seeing it again, I don't know how she's not like sitting there cringing and being like, "Oh my god, I'm a monster. I was a monster." This is like your worst nightmare. Like, did you ever have
Mm-hmm.
a live journal growing up?
Like probably for like a day or two because my commitment to
Okay.
those things was not great.
Oh, I was like big into LiveJournal back then. I'm like of the age. And I would die if people saw like my LiveJournal entries from back in the day. I don't know my password and it's private, thank God, so no one can like go find it and like break in. But like that's because I don't know what kind of cringy shit I was saying, but I was definitely not like spouting the N word like it was nothing. That's for sure. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just like that's like that to like the 900,000th degree of like you should be hanging your head in shame, and she's just like sitting there like like a fucking dope. Um, and then we also get this flashback of never before seen footage of Jamie saying some racially insensitive things and talking about how crime is a black on black problem, and I'm just like, this is just truly wild. And Valencia says she still has her live journal, which is incredible. I'm dying to know if you still use it. If it still exists. Mine still exists, but it's thankfully locked down forever. And I don't even have the AOL email address that I used to use to log into it. So I can never recover the password. And that's a gift to me from the universe, really. It is. So yeah, it's just like meh. So we get back to the present day, and Melissa opens the conversation of, "So have y'all gotten your shit together?" Um, which is great. And she's like, she basically says like, "I feel like I've done enough work here talking about this topic. What kind of like what does everybody else has to say?" So Danny points out that The Real World is one of the first shows to really open the window to this type of conversation. And Melissa points out that, like, although they did open the window a crack, she still really disagrees with how they portrayed um, racism and race in general back then in the year 2000.
Yeah, having just watched the season for the first time in the year 2022, it really didn't even feel that they did a lot for it. Like
Now,
to me, it was like, okay, well, we have Tokyo in the house. He's this black guy from Chicago, and he's kind of like distanced himself off from everybody. So we don't get a ton of perspective from him. And then we have Melissa, who will have the conversations with people. But as we saw, like, she addressed what white privilege is and how
mhm,
um, you can't even talk about being black if you aren't willing to talk about being white with white privilege. And that didn't make the cut. We don't get to see her parents come on the original season, who then that adds one more black person, one more Filipino person to who you're seeing on your television at that time.
yeah,
um, so like, yeah, conversation was there and there was bits and pieces of it, but it it's taking more of a front and center stage now in the homecoming version of it than I think it ever did then. So
Yeah.
I 100% agree that, like, yeah, they opened the window a little bit, but they didn't. It's just a little crack. Like, they could have opened that fully and they didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree, and I think again they put so much on Melissa's shoulders to teach, and she mentioned this in I think last week's episode, and she talks about it a little bit again today in this week's episode. But they really put the onus. It's almost like, they casted Julie. They obviously did an extensive, it was not easy to get on the Real World back then. They must have
Mm-hmm.
done millions and millions of interviews, not literally millions and millions, but like a lot of interviews and asked her a ton of questions. They knew who she was. They actively put her in a house with two Black people, knowing what was going to happen. So they really put these two Black people in a situation where they were either going to have to deal with this ignorance, which they did, and they did so with a ton of grace and were open to helping her and teaching her. But they really put that burden on Melissa and Tokyo. And they kind of just like left them there. And then, as Melissa kind of continues to say, she talks a little bit about the Bayou tour from 20 years ago, 22 years ago. And because the show was cut together, she says because the show was cut together with a white lens, they showed her off as like this annoying person who continued to talk about it because of how she was made to feel. When the rest of the house was like, get over it. It's not really that big of a deal, and kind of made it seem like she was ruining everyone else's time when they had a great time because of someone throwing a disgusting racist term out as if it was nothing. And, they ended up showing her as like, she felt they portrayed her as maybe a little bit race obsessed. And they showed her as an annoyed person when she was the aggrieved party, and that's who she became instead of all of the other things about her personality, about her parents, or how she was really funny and she was really interested in art. Like, they really put her in this box to be the person that was just always reacting and always talking about race, almost to the point where she says it made her look race obsessed, when in reality everyone in the house should have been race obsessed.
Mm-hmm. I think you bring up a really good point. Or like, it was one of the things you said just now, is that the show is created through a white lens,
Mm-hmm.
and like, not to go on too much of a tangent right now, but I think that's so pivotal to the changes we need to see, especially like not just television, but for us and our viewers is reality television. In that, sure, you can do what like CBS is doing and have 50% POC representation, but if it's still like the same 16 white men creating and editing and putting the
Mm-hmm.
storyline together, then like that representation is devalued, because the story is the characters have representation, but the storyteller, the person who is the
Mm-hmm.
people who are putting all this together, it's still the same people who've been doing this for however many years. And um, you need people with like Tokyo's mind, with
Yeah,
Melissa's mind, in behind the scenes doing that type of stuff, um, so that the stories do get to be made from the perspective of the people who are experiencing it. And like like you said at the top of our show, we are two white women trying to sit here and really like grapple with the the issue of racism as two white women, where like
right.
we can only say and do so much. Like, we can support who we need to support and be as like big of advocates as we can, but at the end of the day, like, we haven't had to experience this. And so
Exactly.
to have the people tell the story and create the story of the like what they've seen, needing to be also people of color, like, I think is so incredibly important. And I hope that that's like the next big shift. I also think that like if that shift does happen sooner rather than later, that we're going to see like a better quality of reality TV, because I do think that like we're at a point where reality TV is a mainstay in a lot of homes on
Yeah.
television. Like, a lot, you have podcast channels created just to talk about reality TV. Like, Netflix has their own reality TV division. Like you have all this shit that's happening within reality
Mhm.
TV, but like the real way that you're going to take it to the next step and not evolution, yeah, I guess like continue the evolution of it is to mix up the type of people who are behind the scenes
Yep.
putting the story together. So I just want to put that out there. That I think that that's really important, and Melissa brought that up within what she said and how Katie mentioned it as well. That I wanted to really hammer that point home because I do truly believe in it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think a long time ago, maybe even before you and I hosted the Housewives show together, when you guys had me on as a guest with Leandro, we talked about this a little bit with the Real Houses of New York when Ebony was on. We talked about it when, or I don't know if we've talked about it, but we've seen it with Garcelle on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. If you're a Survivor fan or a Big Brother fan, you know that CBS and Viacom in general have made an effort to cast 50% POC on their shows moving forward, starting in the last season of Big Brother and the last season of Survivor, in the wake of George Floyd and everything that went on in the year 2020. But to your point, we still have the same people telling the stories, and then we get the people who are put in the Big Brother house or the people who are put on the island in Fiji on Survivor having to do the work to explain to people. We're seeing it even in this season of Survivor, where they have to explain why it's an issue when 3 Black people are voted out in a row on Survivor, and how the other Black people on the island, whether or not they're working with these people or not, don't want to contribute to that trend because, of all of the things that we're talking about here. And same thing with, we had our first Black winner of Big Brother season 23. We had an all Black alliance. And then you put the onus on the people that are in that house and the editing that the casual people who don't watch the feeds, who are casual fans, go on Facebook and start ripping these real people apart because they're working with, finally they have other people that look like them in the house,
Mhm.
and they're bonding over that and they want to create history, and you have white people telling that story. It's putting the onus on all of these contestants on these shows, all of these housewives that are the only women of color in these seasons. Crystal in Real Houses of Beverly Hills is the first Asian housewife in the Beverly Hills franchise, second Asian housewife, I think, or maybe third Asian housewife of maybe of all time, getting death threats and racism in her inbox every day. It's just, they're not doing anything to protect the people that they're casting on these shows. And I think the same exact thing happened to Melissa, seemingly more so Melissa maybe than Tokyo back then, because Melissa spoke more openly about race, but Tokyo did talk about race back then as well. I'm sure that they're also getting, all of the Julies of the world are attacking Melissa and Tokyo now. And it's like, what are the people who create these shows and cast these shows and edit these shows and market these shows doing to protect the people that they cast? How are they telling these stories in a way where it doesn't make them seem like they're pulling the race card again? It's like all
Yeah.
the things that you hear in these ignorant Facebook comments. Like, what are they doing to stop that or to defend these? The answer is nothing. They're doing nothing. So I mean, that's that, really. They're doing nothing. So it almost makes you feel like, why does anybody want to be on these shows moving forward when you know what you're going to come out to? I don't know. We're on a little bit of a tangent, but I think I agree. I think it's important, diversity throughout organizations, even only in TV, in any workplace.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I oh my god, my brain, I swear, like
I know you're coming off of your
I'm coming off of like
sickness.
a not COVID. Like I didn't
Mhm.
have COVID, but I had all the symptoms of COVID. No, there was something that you just. Oh, here we go. Yes, I swear I got it. It's that for as many people who watch this show that see Melissa and say like thank you for
Mhm.
seeing a bit of themselves on television, and there's probably just as many people who see a bit of themselves in Julie.
If not more.
Right. And that's like the unfortunate part of this. And I mean, MTV knows what they're doing though, because they all like they get to be the heroes by creating a place for this conversation, but they also like still get to have a platform for someone like Julie who
Right.
does represent a portion of this country of like, well, why does this matter? Like,
Right.
why can't I say this? Why is that offensive? Like, I'm not racist. Like, I have black friends type of person.
Right.
Um, so that that is a difficult pill to swallow, but I do really, really, really want to focus on the fact that like Melissa in this again is just like so good at it. It sucks that she feels this burden of
Mm-hmm.
having to educate, but at the same time, I don't know if there's anyone else that I would want to educate
Yeah.
more than I do her, just because of the way that she's able to have these conversations, and even the way that she was able to kind of lay out that, like, yeah, when it was us originally 20 something years ago, that I had to be the educator. Sure, Tokyo is here, but like we didn't have the
Mm-hmm.
relationship. Like,
Right.
so even more so because Tokyo is off doing his own thing, I have to be the one who is having all these conversations. And like she didn't put it in a way that was like hurtful or offensive to Tokyo,
Right.
because he was sitting there agreeing. He's like, yeah, and
Yeah.
um she deserves a lot of credit. We obviously give it to her. I hope that the people who aren't as like-minded to us, that they see that and appreciate what Melissa not just did in the original season, but now the way she's able to speak about it so calmly, especially that because like no one wants to listen to someone who's yelling at them, and she still just like gets her point across. And I don't know, I can say so many nice things. I'll stop, but
I just think we're lucky that we all have the privilege of getting to listen to Melissa speak because I just think, and we're lucky that she is willing to take on that role. And we're all appreciative of it
Mhm.
because, like you said, she's great at it. And, she talks a little bit about how it's a lot of emotional labor and it's a really big responsibility to be the house educator. And not only is she the house educator, she's educating millions of people who are watching the show. It's much bigger than that. I know in the moment it's the house, but in reality, it's a lot of people. So I think everybody who gets to listen to Melissa, who has an open mind to hear her, is lucky to have that. Um, but you're right. She did say she felt like she was a little bit on an island because she didn't really have that friendship with Tokyo at the time. But she said this was always something, race in general in the conversation was always something that's hanging over her because she wanted to push back at that time and she wanted to have those conversations, but she always thought about it becoming her and then seeming like she's race obsessed. So there's always something that's going on in her mind, and that's something that neither one of us can relate to. So I'm happy that she's talking about it and she's being open about it, and I hope that she's making a space for other people to be able to assist her in some of this labor, which spoiler alert, nobody did. None of the white people, anyway. So we get a confessional from Tokyo saying people of color continue to deal with this in their lives, and they just don't have the energy to teach along the way, which is true. I mean, Melissa says, they're in the internet age. Like Google is your fucking friend, and
Mhm.
Google is your friend. Just do some research, read a book. It's really not hard. Read a book. Don't rely on your black friends and your people of color friends and the people of color in your lives to have to step in and do the work for you. Like, do the fucking work. That's really it. Um, Jamie does step up at this point and says, it's about time that people ramp up their knowledge and understand ignorance. And then we get to Julie. I don't know that I have the energy, but Julie starts and says, she starts off by saying, I get that people want people to come to the table with a PhD level of knowledge about everyone else's life
I wanted
experience.
to,
And I was like, bro,
yes,
what are you
made me so
saying?
mad. Like, what? No, no one does. No one expects that. People just want you to not be a dick. That's it.
Literally, not one person expects that. Not one person expects that. Melissa and Tokyo just got done saying, like, everybody should be thinking about it. Google is your friend. Do the work and learn. And Julie's saying, I get people expect you wanting to have a PhD. No, 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 no. People want you to be accountable and people want you to be open and want you to be able to listen when you need to listen and to be sensitive. And like, you are literally the opposite of all those things. Like, you are a literal monster, a monster. Um, so this is where she says, she had never met a Black person before coming on the show. She talks about racism in the Mormon church. And Melissa says to Julie, like, whether or not you've ever met a Black person, it doesn't really matter. You grew up in an environment where you were told Black is bad. And Tokyo says, people grew up like you, and that's okay. And you might be the person who comes out on the other side, and then people could listen to you. And then Julie says, I'm trying, but it's not easy when the teachers are screaming at me. And to that, I'd say, ma'am, who raised their fucking voice to you? Who did?
We did. You and me, Katie. But Melissa,
yeah, I would love to.
Give me the chance. I would. How much money? Like, can I donate to a charity to have the opportunity to just yell at Julie for anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes? Because I'll pay it. Like, I will pay it. I don't even need it to be a tax write-off. I will give you the money out of my hard-earned paycheck to let this bitch know.
You know what I would do if I had all the money and the resources in the world, aside from like after I like solve world hunger and do all the things that the billionaires in this world should be doing, I would invest all of my money into a machine to teleport back to the room where that woman was boxing Julie and make myself into that woman and just punch the shit out of her face. That's all. I'm not a violent person, but that would give me the opportunity to step into the situation where she put herself in to get punched in the face, and I want to be on the end.
You want to be Squirrel. What's the woman's name?
Yes, I want to be Squirrel. I want to be Squirrel. She's the type of person that makes me think, like, if I were in a room with her, I feel like I would just like mush her in her face. Like, I would just be, get the fuck out of my face. And I'm not a violent person. I'm not. But I just feel like she is the type of person that would push me to the edge. Because I feel like just even talking about her, it makes me want to like, I can't.
See, like, Melissa to me deserves a Nobel Peace Prize because my immediate reaction to like when the teacher is screaming at you would be like, you want me to scream at you? Like, let me show you scream at you. Like, I can easily show you scream. I would have, oh my God.
When Melissa's head turned around and snapped at her and was like screaming at you, I was like, I felt it. I felt her. I felt her just like stop her sentence and like turn. And I was like, I just don't know how everybody in this room isn't like, what the fuck are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
What are you talking about? It does.
Julie was the loudest person in the room.
Literally, you are the only one that has ever yelled on the show. You're the only one that has ever screamed. You're the only one who has ever cried. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? How are you not hearing everything that all of these people have been saying to you? I don't want to say all of these people because literally no one else has stood up to anything that Julie has done except for Melissa and Tokyo. So how have you not been hearing what Melissa and Tokyo have been saying to you seemingly day over day over day, almost in every conversation that you have with them, because you continuously fuck up and they continue to call you out on your fuck ups? For you to sit here and say that, it just is it's unbelievable to me. Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable. And then she says, this isn't a comfortable environment for me. And Melissa says, it shouldn't be comfortable. We're talking about race. And I think Tokyo also started saying it. You kind of hear like, it's not comfortable for you. Like, I think they both had that same reaction. Again, we hear nothing from anybody else. We just hear nothing. And she says, somehow the attention is on the white woman again, and the attention should be on you. And Melissa's like, the attention shouldn't be on us. It should be on you. And Jamie says the same thing. Jamie says the attention should be on everyone. And Melissa says, don't you see how that's a problem? It's literally on you. And finally we hear from Kelly. And Kelly says, what did you do to kind of move toward being anti-racist? After everything that happened in 2020 and the week of George Floyd, like, what have you done? Have you talked to your kids about it? Have you read about it? And she's like, I'm asking because I don't know. And she's like, Julie's like, I feel like you're asking me if I'm a racist right now. And everyone's like, what? Like, what? You just said that you're an anti-racist. You're trying to be an anti-racist. Someone is asking you, how are you trying to do that? And you said, I feel like you're asking me if I'm a racist. It's like, I don't think that's what she was doing. Why are you so defensive at all times, Julie? Why?
I don't want to say she's a child because there's children that are far more and open-minded, so it's really actually dismissive towards children.
Truly.
It's hard for me to describe this whole situation beyond like how it made me feel, which I guess is infuriating or infuriated. And again, like, thank you, Kelly, for speaking up and asking some questions. Um, that's like the first we're seeing of it in when it comes
Really.
to at least racism. I think some other stuff came up earlier. Like I think some other people spoke up when it was like Julie versus Danny, but um, I think we do still have like a little bit of an old school mindset of like I'm not going to jump in and say the wrong thing when there are people of color here who can like say it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like that's not how you be an ally.
Right.
So, uh,
Right.
oh, man, this whole one, I just got I I want her to leave. Like I don't want her on the show anymore. I hate how much negative energy or like negative time is spent towards taking care of Julie and trying to get her to see that she has she has done things that are either racist, racially insensitive, um, just like reek of white privilege, or just overall ignorant. That we I don't need to see any more examples of it, I guess. Like,
Right.
I'm really hoping that after this episode, we move into other things because I'm tired of having to spend like 45 minutes bitching about Julie each week. Like,
I
let me
know.
bitch about Matt next week,
Oh, I think it's coming. I think it's coming. I
you
think Matt will
know?
get his day. But I totally agree with you. And I just was looking for what Melissa uh, posted on her Instagram story that she also posted on Twitter. It's a
Mm-hmm.
little long, but I want to read it really quickly. Because she basically says we don't know how the show will be edited. We only know what's possible based on what we personally do and what we see happening around us. I was so entrenched in addressing the bigger picture happening around Tokyo's good deeds possibly being skewed as harmful that I didn't even talk to Jamie at length about the N-word incident. For the record, he apologized to me directly prior to our entrance to the house and again after the swamp tour shown in this episode. And he's right. I hold no ill will toward him. In fact, we had a productive conversation on what white people can do to sharpen and elucidate their communications. That's a word I do not know. Communications on race and racism. While in the house, he devoured the book. So you want to talk about race? When I suggested it to him, I appreciate, and then she put in parentheses D, so appreciated as well, his energy and approach on the matter. We call that doing the work. On to my apology scene on this episode. Well, we didn't get there yet, but these couch of doom, quote in quotes, conversations go on for hours. No one was, quote, screaming. However, a producer did have to step in to moderate because I held strong to calling a thing a thing. Offense was taken when I said that she was taught black is bad. I stand by that. Every day, overtly and covertly, we receive anti black messages. Some of us reject them, some of us internalize them, some of us believe them without question and must work to undo that harm for ourselves and for our children. When the producer stepped in to separate the personal from the global, we somehow achieved clarity and we could move forward. Oops, I skipped ahead. Kelly was right. Two conversations in dynamic about race were being conflated. One was a conversation that to be had about optics and manufacturing narratives as of this filming. The other was to be had about the gravity of past discussions and how they still ring true in today's political climate. As parents, my husband and I have explained this many times to our 3 daughters for whom we are living examples. Sometimes in life, we must share space with a person we don't want to be around. Regardless, we need to honor our boundaries and still act with grace. Acting with grace is as much for me as it is for the person whom I apologized, even though I have not been afforded that same courtesy. Apologies, true and real, are powerful when you can give them. This was especially important because I knew this would be sharing the gift of knew I would be sharing the gift of breaking bread with my lovely parents. Shorty and Mercy have only fond memories of every person in that house, and this evening was just as much their experience as it was mine. I wanted to honor that history and have this be as special for them as I hope it was for the entire cast. It was a much needed solace for me. In conclusion, air horns, all black everything, Filipinos forever. She kind of goes on from there. But I just wanted to read that part of it because I think there was probably a lot more that was not shown because it does sound like it got very heated and that producers stepped in. So I just think it's unfortunate that it has to get escalated to this place every time the conversation comes up because there's people that don't listen. And I'm happy to hear that Jamie listened and quote did the work and continues to hopefully do the work and learn and grow. But I just want to read that from Melissa because I felt like it added some additional context to this scene that I thought was really important. And it sounds like she never got an apology from Julie. So
Is it a mastermind move by Jamie to have the conversation with Melissa off camera so that Jamie gets to continue to just be Jamie, which is like the woo guy who is going to like shotgun beers and be a good time. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't
I
have
don't
to
know.
involve himself publicly because he knows he's had this conversation, and it's not like Melissa is going to like, well, he didn't say it on camera, like that's not Melissa, you know?
I
Mastermind
don't know.
move
I would
by him.
hope that he's more genuine than that. I would hope.
Oh, I
I
don't
would
think it
hope.
like I'm not taking any um of the realness of the conversation away. You know what I mean? I'm sure
Yeah,
that it
yeah,
like if it had to happen on camera, it would. But I also just think
yeah.
it's like there's also probably a reason we don't see it on cameras because that conversation is
Right.
likely to be boring to a viewer in comparison to one with Julie, who is going to fight
Mm,
back and say that she's not racist when she clearly is.
yeah. Well, I think it's a mastermind move by a lot of them to just stay quiet and let Julie bury herself a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be nice to hear from them a little bit more. But she basically just gets derailed into her saying, "I'm just doing my best." And then Matt, I think this is in a confessional, says, "This conversation's making me feel uncomfortable."
Mm-hmm.
So great input as always from Matt. Way to go, Matt. You're hitting your word quota this week with just nonsense. Um, so Melissa basically says, "You feel strongly about it. The floor is yours." That's what Kelly's trying to do. You feel strongly about being an anti-racist, then the floor is yours. So then I think this is probably after what Melissa says, where the producers had to step in, and
Mm-hmm.
then it seems like they could have a constructive conversation because the mood changes here. And this is when Julie starts to say, she started talking about the Mormon church, how a lot of what's held within the Mormon church and their beliefs are inherently racist, and they led to her believing a lot of stereotypes. And she has spent decades trying to deconstruct it and make sense of it. And she hopes that she's an anti-racist.
Mm-hmm.
You're not. Just want to let you know. Maybe you're not. You don't think you're actively a racist, but you are a damaging human being. So she cries again, and she acknowledges that there's an instance in house where Tokyo is opening someone else's bag. And this is an area where Julie is trying to acknowledge her privilege a little bit, which I have to say, like, good for you, Julie, for realizing this was an instance that you would never think about in your life. But Tokyo had to open someone else's bag, and he brings it into the room with Julie and says, "Can you watch me open this?" And she says, "Why?" And he says, "Well, I have to open up someone else's bag, and I want to make sure they don't think I took something." And she said, "I didn't even think that this would be. I wouldn't even think of that, and I realize that's something that you have to think about every day." And it's like, okay, great job, Julie. That's like step one. You're good job.
Mm-hmm.
Good job.
Even Tokyo was like, yes.
Yes, Tokyo was like, this is exactly,
Yeah.
this is it. This is it. It's like they had a breakthrough moment there. And then she says something about like, even you asking if you could sit on Kelly's bed. And Melissa's like, well, that's just good manners. Like, which made me,
Yeah,
that added a little bit of like, lightness to the conversation. But, it is good manners to ask if you can sit on someone's bed. But she admits then that she had a selfish and drunken night, and she ended up being a threat to Tokyo. And that's not even in her conscious. So she apologizes. Interesting. I guess that she finally kind of backed down and apologized. I don't know how genuine it was, but all that matters is what Tokyo thinks. And Tokyo says in his confessional that he felt her words and intent were true, and that she was telling the truth. And that's really all you can ask for. And she says that she's going to try and do better. So we will see. I have a feeling that we probably aren't going to see too much more about race in the season moving forward, only because we didn't see a lot about it in the mid-season preview. I feel like all the conversations we've had about race were shown in the original preview, and now we've kind of shifted gears in the end of the preview, but we'll talk about that when we get there.
No, I agree.
So yeah. So then that kind of ends the conversation, and Jamie's like, okay, let's go have dinner. So Melissa kind of sits there for a few minutes and is like, I'm a big enough person to know that I had a stank tone, and it was a little tangy, and it wasn't fair to Julie.
Made me be like, what stank tone?
Same. Which makes me think there must be something that was seen off camera that Melissa was referencing, because she was even keeled the whole time. And like, maybe she was like, I don't even want to say she was stern, because she wasn't. Like, Julie was conflating things that didn't even happen. I don't believe that she owed Julie an apology, but obviously I think that there was not a lot that we saw. So I guess she felt that she did. So she gave her an apology. So she goes out, she sees Julie, she says, my energy was up here today. up here. And the reason for that is because talking about racism is exhausting. And she says, you got beat up today and I was a part of that. So, and it wasn't nice. And we get Melissa talking in a confessional that, she's saying, maybe I need to have a little bit more patience because not everybody is as interested in these topics as me. I enjoy learning about racism, you know, um, uh, queer rights and things like that, where maybe not everybody else does. So she can't expect the same from everyone that she expects from herself, essentially. Which, okay, I guess. I mean,
To
I don't know.
me, Melissa just took the very, and I say this as a former educator, like new school approach to fostering successful student relationships. As I think a very old school perspective is like, I expect you to respect me, right? So I'm the a power, the authority in this room. You are the student. You need to respect me. That is the role that we have set as society.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's been a shift in how this happens where there's now an expectation for teachers to go out of their way to show students respect, to, and like, I don't think it's that difficult to do. I've always done this like somewhat naturally of like,
Yep.
I'm the kid who the people like a lot of teachers have an issue with, like, I'll give them a little bit more wiggle room than maybe I should, and I'll
Yeah.
show them trust in that type of thing, because then they're 10 times more likely to return it to you as opposed to just expecting it. Like, I think Melissa's smart enough to know that she's not going to be in a comfortable situation with Julie for however much longer of
Mm-hmm.
time they have there, where if she can show, okay, there's this place that I've messed up, I'm wrong, I raised my voice or gave you this attitude that I shouldn't have, which like Julie has done 1,000 times worse
Mm-hmm.
of. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to lead by example and I'm going to show you the respect and I'm going to apologize. That then Julie takes it as like, oh, if she can do this, then I can do this.
Right.
That's like when I saw that happening, to me, I was just like, oh, I've done this move hundreds of times over with
Yeah.
the annoying kid that like all the other teachers have behavior issues with that I don't, because I treated this person
With respect and
more
yeah.
kindly than I should have, but because I don't come at them from the angle that a lot of the adults do,
Mm-hmm.
they like me more than everyone else, so they're
Right.
not going to be a jerk to me. And
Right.
I felt like Melissa kind of used that move with Julie in this apology. And while I do believe that Melissa was sincere in her apology, that she felt that way, I also don't think Melissa needed to apologize for anything. But
Right.
it's like, all right, we don't need this to be a miserable place to live.
Exactly. It felt like that's exactly right. Like it kind of almost, I'm using the Shannon Bedore version of put a pin in it, meaning it popped the tension bubble in the house, not the put a pin in it and save it for
Oh, you're
later
making up a
version.
third definition of this expression.
Yeah, I guess I'm making up a third definition. Well, I feel like the tension was like Gina's ego from Real Houses of Orange
I'm
County and
telling
needed to put a
Andy
pin in it.
Cohen.
Yeah, tell Andy to come for me and I'll let him know that there's not only one meaning of put a pin in it, but it's like almost like she popped it. There was a tension bubble, she popped it, and everybody could kind of like move forward from there. Melissa really took the high road here in doing that. And Julie was just like, okay, and like didn't reciprocate at all. But Melissa basically left it off saying like, now we can continue our weird dance of tiptoeing around each other until we can get it together. And then we just see like a weird cut of like Jamie and Julie doing yoga, which there's nothing really to say here other than like Jamie just looked like a sad, wobbly old man in the scene. So I feel like I had to talk about it. He was like doing the thing where I don't know how to describe this or what the move is. I'm not a
You
yoga
like
person.
grab each elbow,
Yeah, you grab each
and then
and then
you
you
like
like
hinge forward at the
twist.
hips and you rock back and forth like
Yeah.
you're rocking a baby. I can
Yes.
describe yoga. Don't ask me to do it, but I can
Yeah.
describe it.
Same. Except I can barely describe it because I was just like, I don't know, he did this thing
He
and he
did
looked
this
like a
like
wobbly baby. But that's all I wanted to say. And then we get Melissa's parents. We get Shorty and Mercy, which was so nice. This was just a really nice moment in the house. Everybody really got along. The roommates are super excited to see them. Mercy makes a Filipino dinner for everybody, and they make lumpia together. Tokyo is Mercy's sous chef, and we get another freaking banger from Tokyo
Mm-hmm.
about, I think, what is it, like gangster noodles or something he's singing about. But like I was just like, okay, Tokyo, I want an album. Where's the album? Put it on Spotify. I will stream it. I will get you your 0.0001 penny per stream.
You'll
I want
have
it.
Tokyo in your Spotify Wrapped
Oh my god.
2022.
Yeah, I'll be like the point top 0.0001% of listeners. I'll stream it
Mm-hmm.
all the time. I love it. I want more. That song was good.
They're
They're
all
all
very
catchy.
yeah, they're so catchy.
They're so good. I mean, like he's making bops.
Mm-hmm.
Um And while they're cooking together and sitting at the table, we get a moment of Julie and Melissa talking about each other. And like, I'm like a former like emo pop punk, how everybody
Oh
was in the
my
early
gosh,
2000s.
yes.
And Julie dated Chad from Newfound Glory, which I found shocking. He was married or is still married, but was married to Hayley Williams of Paramore. I think they're divorced now, perhaps. Am I wrong? I could be making that up. Let me look it up.
I don't know about that, but they were talking while you're looking up. I'll keep going with it. Yeah, when she like, so I dated this guy who was in Newfound Glory, and it was like, Chad, yeah, like
Yeah.
we met him at Mark Hoppus' house. Like
Yes.
we're there with they had all these people who were there sign this like celebrity book, and they want us to sign it. And it was funny because like again they knew that they were like they were celebrities for being themselves, and they weren't celebrities for
Right.
like whatever talents can make you a celebrity. But yeah, just the way that like Julie dropped that, I actually was like, what the fuck?
Yeah. I was shook. 2003 me would be very jealous of her. 2022 me, not jealous of her at all. But back then, I would have been like, oh, she's dating Chad. And yes, he was married to Hayley Williams. They divorced in, I don't know, but I think 2020, 2018. But yeah, that's his first wife, I believe,
Wow.
which is weird. Just all weird. But yeah, I thought that was funny that they signed the celebrity guest book in Mark Hoppus's house, which is like a pretty. I mean, Mark Hoppus is really famous.
Mm-hmm.
Travis Barker is literally about to be a Kardashian. Like they're very famous people. Weird trajectory for Blink 182 in general. I'm gonna say that. Anyway, we don't. It's for a different podcast. But Melissa's basically saying like this is the first time that there's no tension at dinner. Everybody had a really great time. Tokyo was posting a lot of pictures and videos from this dinner on his Instagram, which I thought was really sweet. And Melissa was commenting on it and was like, "Oh my god, I love this." And it just seemed like Melissa's parents had a really great time. The housemates had a really great time, and it just brought a really much needed energy into the house. And it's nice that we got to see them all interact because we didn't get to see it in the original season.
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts on anything towards the end of the episode with Melissa's parents? I don't want to rush through that part, but I just think it was just such a nice moment. I don't think there's really that much to pick apart about it, like there is just generally about Julie. But Melissa's parents are adorable, and I love them, and they're just very cute.
Yeah, I liked getting to see that. I think that MTV did their best this episode, or Paramount Plus did their best this episode, with really trying to like not just make it 45 to 50 minutes of heavy conversation. So we had our first initial conversation of the house meeting, and then we had the return trip to the bayou, and then more heavy conversation about racism.
Yeah.
And then we had the parents there to make food and alleviate that. And so I do appreciate that it can be very tempting, I think, because clearly people are going to care more about the controversy than like pants it, that
Exactly. Yeah.
but I do like that we're seeing all of it, and especially only within 8 episodes, that it's not all just like hard hitting stuff. We are getting some levity in between.
I agree. I agree. I'm glad we got not necessarily bookends because we started in a rough place, but I'm glad we got some nice cheery moments. And then the preview, I think we're gonna have a lot to talk about. moving forward.
Mhm.
The preview basically shows us it's a mid-season preview. It's not next time on. So we get the housemates recording a version of "Come on, Be My Baby Tonight" that actually is the kind of like the song that plays throughout the trailer, the original trailer, which is just so cool. Um, then we get this scene that's alluding to a lot of things happening between Jamie and Julie. We do get Julie admitting that they hooked up and did more than kiss. We're adults. We
Mhm.
can't. I guess we still can't say what happened, but um, I think we talked about what some of those rumors were. Maybe not rumors. Susie said it. We talked about that last week, I think. We get a scene of them like doing a lot of drinking in the backyard and being in the hot tub. And I'm nervous about it. I'm nervous about it. We see Julie's husband calling and getting upset about something seemingly. So it's just I don't know if they're doing a little editing magic for us in the preview, but so far the preview has not duped us. It's been kind of
Mhm.
exactly what they alluded to. So, Jamie, I just want to say love yourself. She's not worth it. She's not worth whatever it is you're about to do. So please just show some restraint, please, because I can't. I can't. We did in the original preview get a scene of people making out in a hot tub, and now I'm just really nervous that it's Julie and Jamie, and I can't with this. I just can't.
Yeah, I'm not gonna think about it much. I've thought way too much
No.
about Julie over the last like 24 hours
Yeah.
since, or I think I watch it the first time this morning, so it seems like 24 hours. It's been like 12. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I wish like I don't know, Jamie and Matt made out instead or something. Like stop
Yeah. Let it
stop
out, Matt.
making
We know you have this
Julie.
pent up sexual tension with the men in the house that you feel uncomfortable about. Let it out.
Oh,
It'll make you feel so much better.
I need TV producer Julie to just take a break. Like, isn't it your off
Mm,
day? Come
I
on.
can't. I know.
So,
She's rough. So it seems like we're still in for a ride, just maybe a little bit of a different ride.
mhm,
And then we get a preview of Matt versus Danny. And I don't want to say Matt versus Danny. I want to say Matt being a homophobe,
mhm.
essentially. Talking to Danny about it and still being like, I'll never understand how God made you the way that he made you. And it just seems like this is about to be another infuriating um, group of conversations that we're about to be subject to. And then we get like some scenes of Kelly being really stressed out and having anxiety about stuff, but I don't
Yeah,
know, like, is your book due and you have a deadline or something? Like, I don't
that
know.
would
What is
probably
it?
be it.
What's happening in your house, in this house that involves Kelly that she could possibly be stressed about? I have no idea. But I guess we'll find out. We
Mhm.
only have 4 more episodes left. I'm really upset about it. I
It's
think
been
we have
good
8
though.
episodes. I think maybe
I don't.
they'll surprise us and make some more, but I think the last few were set 8 episodes.
All right. Well,
Yeah,
we still have 50% of the episodes to talk about.
it's true. I just
I'm
never
good.
wanted to end.
Glass half full here.
Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts? Any final thoughts? Anything that we didn't talk about?
Nope. I think I've said it all. I will
Yep.
apologize to you, Katie, and to anybody who was listening. I was not on my A game. My dog was sick
No,
a
you're doing
couple of
great.
times during the podcast. So if I seem distracted or aloof, my bad, but you'll get a better version of both me and Nitro next week.
Yeah, you're doing great. Don't worry about it.
I was literally
Um,
texting my roommate during it, being like, bring paper towels.
oh no. Well, hopefully
So,
Nitro's feeling better.
hope so. He's
He's
laying
gonna lay
underneath.
off the truffle fries.
I don't know. I heard there was no truffle on these fries, so
Oh.
but they were definitely very like soggy. So I don't,
Maybe the oil.
something. That's it has to be the oil. I'm
Yeah,
convinced it was the oil, but
that oil
hopefully he's
sneaks
done.
up on you.
He's done. You know, bringing it all back up. He only had like 4 or 5 too. It wasn't even a
Oh,
lot,
poor guy.
but all right. So
Poor
anyway,
guy. All right. Well, Carrie, where can everybody find you on these internet streets?
I am on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and Venmo at KGD26. Um, tweets currently, I don't even know. I like I said, I was sick for like 5 days. I if I tweeted something, I don't remember it. I like couldn't sit up for 3 days. So just follow me for like I don't know if you want to see people say dumb things. I'm your person. But otherwise, yeah,
Awesome.
I'm not doing much there. But dude, I'm podcasting like every single day for the rest of my life. And by
It's
rest of my
true.
life, I mean like the next at least month.
Kari's carrying all of Silent Podcast on her shoulders.
Yes, I am putting. I'm not putting the silent and silent podcast. I'm the opposite right now. So just coming up in the next couple of days, I apologize if you are a Circle fan. We said we would get to you episodes 3 and 4 sooner than we did, but like I said, I was dead this weekend. And so tomorrow we're recording episodes 3 and 4 about the Circle, me and Josie Ann. And then Saturday we're going to record about episodes 5 and 6 of the Circle. On Tuesday, the long-awaited return of the Challenge podcast will be back.
Yay.
So I think you're going to see a rotation of people come through that. Our first episode will likely be Jason, Lance, and myself, and maybe also so we're going to cover episodes 1 and 2 from this week on Tuesday, and then every Thursday from there on out we're going to record about that week's episode. So that's going to be however long that lasts for. And then of course Katie and I are covering Real Housewives, and she is giving me such grace to get caught up because I have not watched an episode in like a week and a half, and
they are
like
piling up
now all these episodes for me to watch. I'm like so overwhelmed. It's like, you know, when you like don't even want to start something because like how
that's the
much
story of my life.
there is. That's it's like, all right, just start the first New Jersey reunion episode, Kari. Like just do it. Just do it.
It's worth it. It's worth it.
No, I'm sure that it is. I definitely believe that it is. It's just one of those things that like, well, you're like, oh yeah, Beverly Hills started. Like this started. I'm like, is this a new city? Like, how are we having all these episodes at once? So
it's a lot.
Yeah, we're covering that too. I don't know when the next episode will be. Katie and I are gonna figure that out soon, but don't worry, we'll have your Real Housewives content coming. So in conclusion, this is, if Silent Podcast had a middle name, it would be Kari right now. So Katie, what about you?
Yeah. Well, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Real Slim Katie. You can also find me on twitch.tv/Real Slim Katie with an underscore at the end, where I play some like easy, cozy, chill games, and we talk a lot about TV, reality TV, all kinds of things. So feel free to drop a follow there. It's free to follow. So if you're a Twitch person and you want to pop in, feel free. And you can also find me on Silent Podcast. We just finished wrapping up our Big Brother Canada coverage for season 10. This was like an all-time season. The season was really great. We were really lucky enough to get to do some exit press this season. So our interviews with Kevin, Betty, and Josh are up on YouTube. We also have an audio interview with Helena, who went out at Final Four. We have an interview with JC Lynn, if you're interested in the back catalog of Exit Press. But the interview with Kevin was really, specifically Kevin was really great. So I definitely recommend you guys go listen to that. He gave us a lot of really good info and was super enthusiastic and awesome. So we really appreciate that. We're working on a few things moving forward in terms of maybe like wrap ups or season recaps and postseason interviews. So keep checking out the feed there. We'll also be covering Big Brother US season 24 when that comes out. So the same panel will remain. And you can find me with Kari covering Real Housewives whenever we can schedule it, whenever Kari can get through the library of of episodes that are stacking up. So we'll definitely have a jam-packed episode for you soon. And then, you'll find us weekly from there talking about all of the things. That's it. That's all I got.
You want to tell them where they can listen to all this stuff?
Yes, I would love to. So you can listen to all of that awesome content plus more that we talked about. We also have Survivor coverage led by Gia, which is really amazing. We have the Top Chef Quick Fire Queens podcast led by Naomi, Nicole, and Gia. We also have Saturday morning cartoons led by Isaiah. Now that Big Brother Canada has kind of cleared up, I think we're going to be starting to talk about a lot of other, maybe like more nerdy things, if that's kind of what you're into. I know Isaiah really wants to get back into some of the scripted stuff, some of the anime stuff. I think we're throwing around some ideas if you're a Star Wars fan to talk about Obi-Wan, which I'm really excited about. I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. So I'm very excited to talk about that. If it comes out, I mean, it will come out, but if we decide to cover it. So there's plenty of things. If there's anything that you're interested in, definitely check it out. We're also looking for new voices. So you may have seen, if you follow us on any of these on any of these mediums, we posted a link. Isaiah posted a link. A lot of us retweeted it to for like an interest form if you would like to join us to start talking about your favorite shows and your favorite content. So feel free to fill that out. I think it closes on the 15th, which is what, Sunday. So get those applications in if you're interested, and Isaiah will reach out to you. And yeah, you can find us on Twitch at Silent Podcasts. You can find us on Twitter at silent_podcast, and you can subscribe to us on YouTube at Silent Podcasts. So that is where we are. Also, you can obviously subscribe to us on all the podcasting apps that are out there, and feel free to leave us a rating or review, anything that might help us get discovered in the future if you like what you hear. So that is where we are.
And a shout out to our faithful, loyal live fans. You guys
Thank you guys so much.
You guys, so
yes,
we love interacting with you as the show goes on.
Yes, we appreciate it so much that you guys are here and listening and actively participating in the chat with us. We love it. So it's always great to see you guys every week, and we really, really appreciate the support.
Sure do.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's it for us this week. We will be back next week to talk about Julie flirting it up. And that's that.
My stomach hurts more than Nitro's does after you just said that.
Yeah, it's gonna be a rough one. It's gonna be we have to strap in for the ride next week.
It's gonna be me throwing up in the corner of the room next week.
It'll be all of us. Everybody will collectively be holding hands and vomiting in the corner. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you next time. Have a good one.
Oh, still messed up.